So welcome everyone to the RiVeR Project podcast series. We're delighted to be here today in Rape Crisis Northeast, and we're joined by the manager Belinda Breagy and also two senior therapists, Mooney and Annmarie Kennedy. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the podcast. I'm delighted to be here today with you.
Thank you, Lisa. Great, Lisa. Thank you.
So we're going to start by having a look at the structure and origins of Rape Crisis Northeast. And before we do that, Belinda, so you've recently been appointed to the role of manager with Rape Crisis Northeast. So maybe you might start by telling us a little bit about that role.
Thank you, Lisa. It's a pleasure to have you here at RCNE Dundalk this afternoon. So the role of the manager at RCNE and what that looks like. So as the manager, I'm responsible for the overseeing the centre's operations, ensuring the delivery of a high quality survivor-centred service. The manager ensures the centre operates in compliance with legal and ethical standards, continually improving services through monitoring and evaluation. Ensuring that the centre provides survivor-centred, trauma-informed support, prioritising the needs and the well-being of the client, creating a safe space for healing.
Oh, that's lovely, Belinda. And that's such a large brief. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what supports you in that role?
Well, Lisa, I suppose I will say that I come with 25 years, which is a long time, of dedicated service to the healthcare sector. So I suppose that brings a wealth of knowledge and a lot of expertise from an operational and a clinical and therapeutical perspective. I'm also a life coach and mentor, which brings, I guess, a deep passion for helping people.
Oh, that's great, Belinda. I can see how all of those experiences, benefit such a complex organisation but with such a wide brief. So thank you for that, Belinda. So we might then just begin by looking at the Rape Crisis Northeast and the origins. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about Rape Crisis Northeast in that respect and maybe the structure today?
So, Lisa, RCNE, it's a non-profit registered charity, and it is the only specialised sexual violence counselling service in the northeast of Ireland. We serve counties Louth, Meath and Monaghan in the northeast region of Ireland. So we have our main centres here in Dundalk. We have an outreach centres in Drogheda, in Navan and in Castleblaney. The mission of RCNE is to provide a free, confidential, non-directive, non-judgmental support to those affected by sexual violence. Our team consists of professionally trained and fully accredited psychotherapists, all of whom are members of the Irish Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy, the ISCP. We are supported by a dedicated board of directors who oversee the governance of the organisation and also ensure that we remain compliant with national standards and legal regulations. Additional to that, the day-to-day operations, Lisa, of the organisation are managed by myself with the support of an administrative team. We also have a dedicated volunteer team who contribute in various supportive roles. And this in turn further enhances the service that we provide.
Wow, that is a wide service area, Belinda. Thank you for sharing that. So I might move to Annmarie now to talk a little bit more about those services. But before we get into that, Annmarie, just to maybe, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the audience as well. Tell us a little bit about you and your role.
So I'm one of 2 senior therapists at RCNE, and I've been working here for almost 5 years. And I've been in the role of senior therapist for just over 2 years, and I'm accredited with the IACP. So just in terms of our organisation and what we offer. So crisis support and intervention, face-to-face counselling for adults and teenagers, counselling via platforms like Zoom and telephone counselling. So this is done in limited circumstances, as face-to-face is the preferred format, and this is shown to be the most effective way of working with trauma. We also offer advocacy, accompaniment services for medical examinations at the sexual assault treatment units, court and Gardaí. We offer assistance with victim impact statements and information sessions and training for various groups. Our services are available to anyone who has suffered as a result of sexual violence, regardless of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation or ability. We also extend our support to those who may contact us out of concern for a family member or maybe a friend or a colleague. Additionally, we provide specialised counselling for teenagers aged 14 to 18 years of age.
Oh, that's really great, Annmarie. Thanks for that overview. I've noticed there that Rape Crisis North East places a strong emphasis on accompaniment, because you did mention there medical, court and guard accompaniment, and I'd imagine the importance of accompaniment at a critical time. Can you maybe talk us through why these services are so crucial for survivors, like from a psychological perspective?
Of course, Lisa. Accompaniment can be profoundly beneficial for survivors for several psychological reasons. First, it provides a sense of safety and emotional support in environments that may feel intimidating or even re-traumatizing, like a Garda station, a courtroom, or perhaps a medical setting. For instance, medical accompaniment during a SATU examination, which stands for Sexual Assault and Treatment Unit. So those type of examinations, if we do accompanied with them, then that can help to reduce the feelings of isolation and vulnerability that survivors may experience during a clinical or invasive procedure. So this support helps ground the individual, as they know they have an empathetic, supportive person by their side who really understands their trauma. Similarly, court and guard accompaniment plays an essential role in offering survivors not only practical support but also emotional reassurance. The legal system can often feel overwhelming, especially for those who have already endured trauma. A friendly face during these moments can mitigate anxiety and help the survivor feel validated and protected. On a psychological level, accompaniment enhances the survivor's sense of agency and control. These are really critical components in trauma recovery, and it counters the feelings of powerlessness, which are often central to the experience of sexual violence.
Thanks, Annmarie. I mean, that really does make perfect sense. I would have seen that myself in domestic violence practice, where, that, as you had said there, that empathetic person at that really important point can make a huge difference. So just thinking about that a little bit more and just moving towards the victim survivor perspective, I might just ask Mary then. So Mary, we're going to talk a little bit about how victim survivors typically engage with Rape Crisis North East. But before we do that, can you maybe introduce yourself to the listeners? Just tell us a little bit about you and your role.
Of course, Lisa. Well, I'm the other senior therapist with Annmarie, and I have worked in RCNE for over 5 years, and I've been the senior therapist for 2, and I'm also accredited with the IACP.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mary. So, Mary, when we're thinking about the journey of victim survivors, what does their journey look like through Rape Crisis North East?
It starts, Lisa, with the referral. So there's a number of ways that survivors can engage with us. The first is self-referral. Many people reach out to us directly by phone to make an appointment. Then there's the 24-hour national helpline. So survivors can also connect with the national helpline, which will refer them to the nearest Rape Crisis Centre, which is us if it's in the area. And the third really is professional referral, because healthcare providers can also refer, social workers or SATU nurses can refer survivors to RCNE.
I mean, I think they're all really important points, but I'm going to just really important around our fellow professionals in the area, being aware of the service as well and knowing that that's an option.
Exactly, yeah. So once a referral's made and an appointment becomes available, the next person on the waiting list will be called for the initial assessment, and that's to assess the client's needs. So this session is crucial in determining how best we can support the individual. From there, clients typically attend weekly sessions that last 50 minutes, and that creates a structured and consistent framework for their healing process.
Oh, thank you, Mary. That initial session sounds like a key moment in their journey. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. It is a key moment in their journey of healing and their journey that we have to walk through with them in that process.
Yeah, you can really feel that from your answer there in terms of, the focus being on the client's individual needs and, beyond direct services to survivors. Does the Rape Crisis Northeast offer support to other professionals who may be working with survivors? You'd mentioned that they could be referrers, so are there supports there for professionals?
There is indeed, Lisa. RCNA provides consultation services to other professionals, such as healthcare workers, social workers and educators, and offering them, the information and the advice on best practices for supporting survivors of sexual violence. And we also offer information sessions that can be tailored to the needs of different organisations, ensuring that the professionals are equipped with the knowledge and sensitivity required when working with survivors.
Yeah, that's such an important point, isn't it, Mary?
Yes.
That people feel that they're equipped.
Yeah.
And ready to respond and ready to refer.
Yes, exactly.
And hold that situation until such times. That's really good. And this is a really insightful conversation today. It is clear that Rape Crisis Northeast are a vital resource for survivors in the northeast of Ireland. I'm very struck by your dedication to trauma-informed care. Belinda had mentioned that just at the very beginning. So what's the key message for your listeners to take away, Mary, would you say?
I think the most important message, Lisa, today is that nobody has to go through this journey alone. Whether you're a survivor, a concerned family member, or a professional working with survivors, support is available here. And reaching out can be a first step towards the healing. And we're here to work and walk with you on that journey.
Oh, that's very powerful, Mary. Mary, thanks so much for that powerful message. So if you know someone who could benefit from Rape Crisis Northeast's services, really important to reach out, I would say.
It is indeed. Reach out. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mary. It's great to hear the incredible work being done by Rape Crisis Northeast. So I think what we might do now is take a deeper dive into the legislative context. So let's maybe have a look at the landscape that governs domestic, sexual and gender-based violence in Ireland. So I might turn to you for that, Annmarie, if that's okay.
That's great, Lisa. Thanks. So domestic, sexual and gender-based violence encompasses a spectrum of abuse: domestic violence, sexual violence and violence rooted in gender inequality. In practice, it includes physical, emotional, sexual, psychological and financial abuse, often manifesting in intimate or familiar relationships, but also extending to institutional and societal contexts. For professionals, the challenge is recognising these forms of violence across different environments and identifying how power and control dynamics play out in each. In the Irish context, this includes the Domestic Violence Act 2018, which reinforces protections for victims within intimate and familial settings, and the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2017, which clarifies the legal definition of consent. Both of these pieces of legislation are really foundational for those working in this field.
Yeah, they really are foundational. I'm just going to, just a little curveball now, Annmarie, just from practice as well. It's just that sometimes that experience disconnect for victim survivors between what's there and what's achieved. Any thoughts on that? Like, how do these laws manifest in daily life, particularly from the perspective of those experiencing violence?
Yes, Lisa, I completely agree. And so this is where the nuanced understanding of DSGBV becomes critical for professionals. While the Domestic Violence Act gives survivors access to safety and barring orders, many face complex barriers, such as psychological, economic, and cultural, that really prevent them from taking action. For instance, survivors may feel trapped by financial dependence or by threats from their abuser. When considering safety planning, professionals must account for these barriers, moving beyond the legal remedies to focus on holistic safety. Consent is also another key issue. The Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act clearly defines that consent must be freely and voluntarily given without coercion. However, in practice, survivors may not immediately identify that what they've experienced is actually sexual violence, especially in ongoing relationships. This is where professionals come in, not only to clarify the legal definitions, but to provide validation, helping survivors understand that consent must be explicit and ongoing, even in intimate relationships.
That's so important. Like, that's really such an important point, Annmarie. Consent within intimate relationships is, would it be fair to say, sometimes misunderstood? Like, even by, I'm going to say even by well-meaning professionals at times, it can be a little bit misunderstood. So how can those in the field approach this issue, would you say, sensitively when working with victim survivors?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we need to acknowledge the intersection of power, control, and coercion within intimate relationships. Survivors may have been conditioned to accept a lack of consent as normal due to emotional manipulation or threats. The key is for professionals to create a safe, non-judgmental space where survivors can unpack their experiences without fear or blame. It's also vital to understand that legal definitions, while crucial, may not immediately resonate with survivors' lived experience. We as professionals must approach the conversation on consent with care, balancing legal literacy with empathetic, trauma-informed care. By using exploratory, non-leading questions, we can help survivors piece together their narratives in ways that affirm their autonomy and agency.
Oh, that's really great guidance, Annmarie. Thanks so much. Just when we're thinking about autonomy, Coco's Law has been a game changer in addressing image-based sexual violence. Could you explain its significance in the broader context of gender-based violence?
Of course, yeah. So Coco's Law, formerly known as the Harassment, Harmful Communications and Related Offences Act 2020, was really a crucial response to the growing prevalence of digital violence, particularly targeting women. It criminalises the non-consensual sharing of intimate images, even if the intent to cause harm isn't present. This is a direct acknowledgement of how deeply image-based abuse can violate a person's sense of autonomy, their privacy, and also their safety. For professionals, this law really reinforces the importance of understanding digital spaces as extensions of physical ones. Survivors of image-based violence often experience the same psychological effects, such as anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's the same experience as those who've experienced physical sexual violence. Our role is not only to help them navigate the legal options, like filing charges under Coco's Law, but also to support them as they reclaim control over their bodies, both online and offline.
Thanks for that, Annmarie. And thanks for exploring the Irish legal framework there in addressing domestic sexual and gender-based violence, including the critical area of image-based sexual violence under Coco's Law, because it's really important and it's something that's talked about a lot, and for good reason. Now, that leads me, though, to another form of abuse that often occurs, that is child sexual abuse. So to look closer at this, maybe we'll focus a little bit on child sexual abuse and where that fits within the DSGBV framework, both legally and in terms of real-world impacts, Annmarie, if that's okay?
Yes, of course. So child sexual abuse is defined as any sexual activity involving a child under the age of 17 for the gratification of another person. In the domestic context, this often involves a family member, and the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2006 provides protections, including severe penalties for acts against children under the age of 15. Additionally, the Children's First Act 2015 mandates reporting of suspected abuse by professionals. It is important to note that the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2017 recognises the autonomy of older teens, those aged 16 and 17 years of age, to engage in consensual sexual relationships with similar aged persons. However, it prohibits adults in a position of authority from engaging in sexual activity with persons under the age of 18.
Thanks, Annmarie. So maybe beyond the legal framework, can you talk to us a little bit about what are the real world impacts of child sexual abuse on survivors, particularly those abused in domestic environments?
So survivors of CSA or child sexual abuse within the home often experience long-term trauma, including anxiety, depression, and difficulty forming healthy relationships. The abuse is compounded by the betrayal of trust that comes with familial abuse, leading to feelings of guilt, shame, and powerlessness. In many cases, survivors struggle with sexual health issues and fear of intimacy, making recovery even more challenging.
Thank you, Annmarie. It's a really difficult subject to discuss, isn't it, really?
Of course, yeah, child sexual abuse is hard.
Yeah, but, and a really important subject to discuss, so that people can feel free to talk about what they've experienced. Given the intimate nature of this type of abuse, could you maybe talk to us a little bit about what barriers do victim survivors face when they're seeking help?
So survivors of child sexual abuse in domestic settings in particular may not come forward due to fear of breaking up the family or because they've been groomed into silence. Financial dependence or emotional manipulation can also prevent action. And trauma-informed care is critical here, ensuring survivors feel safe and supported without pressure to immediately pursue legal remedies.
So, Annmarie, when you're speaking about trauma-informed care there now, can you talk us through applying a trauma-informed care lens there? What does that look like when you're working with victim survivors?
So that lens should really focus on creating a safe, non-judgmental space. Survivors must feel in control of their narrative, and it's important for professionals to use exploratory questions while validating the survivor's emotions, helping them understand that the abuse was not their fault, and that's really key to their healing.
Oh, it sure is, isn't it, Annmarie? Really, that to validate somebody's experience. I mean, that can change their lives altogether for them to realise that they've no part in it and no responsibility. Thank you so much for those insights. That's been really helpful, and I know it'll be really helpful for our listeners to have that deeper understanding of the legislative landscape and exploring the experience of child sexual abuse. So understanding child sexual abuse as part of DSGBV really is crucial in helping survivors find the support that they need. Would that be fair?
Absolutely, Lisa, yeah. So with the right support, recovery is possible. Child sexual abuse, particularly in domestic environments, leaves lasting scars on survivors, both practically and psychologically. As we move forward, it's important to remember that legal remedies alone aren't enough. Survivors need holistic support to navigate their trauma.
So thank you, Annmarie. So that does bring us to, there are many challenges, but that does bring us to a key challenge. Many of our listeners are working directly with victim survivors who experience complex trauma. And, I suppose when we're talking about complex trauma, we're talking about the way in which the repeated nature of this often for those that we work with, that it's not a once-off. So how can professionals balance the legal aspects of domestic, sexual and gender-based violence with the psychological care and support that victim survivors need, do you think?
So that's really the core challenge, isn't it, Lisa? So legal remedies are only part of the solution. Survivors need a multifaceted approach, legal, emotional and psychological. Trauma-informed care is essential here, and professionals really must prioritise establishing safety and trust, recognising the ways in which trauma might manifest, whether through hypervigilance, dissociation, or difficulty articulation experiences. At the same time, we need to be advocates within the legal framework. Survivors often feel overwhelmed by the legal system, which can re-traumatise them, especially during processes like giving statements, testimony, or recounting details of their abuse. Understanding the law is critical, but equally important is our ability to support survivors emotionally through these processes, helping them maintain agency while navigating complex legal terrain.
Oh, that is such a vital point, Annmarie. It really is, isn't it? To achieve that with them is critical. So balancing legal advocacy with psychological support. So maybe, would you mind if we moved maybe to sexual harassment, which many professionals also work with frequently? How should we approach this issue in the workplace, or even in an educational setting, or just kind of generally in life? Because all of these lessons support us in our everyday life, don't they?
Of course, Lisa, they do. Sexual harassment is a form of gender-based violence and can often be minimised or dismissed as just words or banter, but its impact is anything but trivial. The Employment Equality Act in Ireland makes sexual harassment illegal in professional settings, yet many victims are hesitant to come forward due to fears of retaliation, being ostracised, or not being taken seriously. For professionals in the field, the key is to create an environment where reporting feels safe and supported. Sexual harassment can have profound effects on a person's mental health, leading to anxiety, depression, and decreased job performance. It's essential to implement clear policies and procedures for addressing harassment, while providing ongoing support through counselling, advocacy, and, where appropriate, legal interventions.
Thank you, Annmarie. We are hearing more about these intersectional issues in domestic, sexual and gender-based violence, like particularly regarding sexual violence within intimate relationships. So what should professionals be aware of when addressing these dynamics particularly?
So sexual violence within intimate relationships is complex, as it often intersects with other forms of control and coercion, including emotional and financial abuse. Survivors may not immediately recognise their experiences as sexual violence, particularly when they feel obligated to their partner due to societal norms or coercive control. For professionals, it's important to recognise the signs of sexual violence that may be masked by the complexities of intimate relationships. Survivor accounts may come in the form of vague discomfort rather than outright declarations. Gentle probing combined with trauma-informed care is crucial in helping survivors articulate their experiences. One of the most important tools professionals can use is validation. Survivors may minimise their experiences because they've been conditioned to believe that coercion or manipulation is part of a normal relationship. By acknowledging the survivor's reality and reinforcing that sexual violence can and does happen within intimate relationships, professionals create a pathway for healing and empowerment.
Oh, really important point, Annmarie. Like understanding the subtleties of how sexual violence manifests in intimate relationships. So just before we maybe move from this part, many professionals listening are likely familiar with the legislative framework. But would you mind, again, maybe if you could touch on how these laws impact survivors' everyday lives and how we as professionals should be really mindful of that?
So the laws we've discussed, whether it's COCO's law, the Domestic Violence Act 2018, or the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act 2017, they're all designed to protect survivors, but legal frameworks alone don't create safety. The real challenge lies in bridging the gap between what's written in law and the lived experiences of survivors. Survivors may not always feel supported by the legal system, especially if they face systemic barriers like disbelief, stigma, or traumatisation during legal proceedings. For professionals, the key is to be proactive advocates, not only helping survivors understand their rights, but also accompanying them through the legal and healing process. Whether we're in the legal, medical, or therapeutic professions, we need to ensure that survivors feel heard, validated, and empowered to make choices that are right for them. Our work is not just about responding to crises, but about being part of a broader societal shift towards recognising and addressing the roots of domestic, sexual and gender-based violence.
So Annmarie, thanks so much for that really valuable insight. For our professional listeners, what would you say is the most important takeaway as they continue their work in domestic, sexual and gender-based violence?
So I think my most important message here is to fellow professionals is this: never underestimate the power of a trauma-informed, empathetic approach. Survivors need to feel that their experiences are valid and that they are not alone. Laws and systems can support this, but it's the human connection, your ability to listen, validate and empower that makes the most significant difference. Keep advocating for survivors, keep pushing for societal change, and remember that your work has a lasting impact.
Absolutely, Annmarie. Powerful words, really, to end on. Thanks so much again for sharing your expertise with us today. So I think really importantly now, because critical to the work of the organisation is for victim survivors and those professionals to know how to contact Rape Crisis Northeast and really focusing on the collaborative approach, which I think would be fair to say is important.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, so individuals can contact us through several means. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Rape Crisis National Helpline on 1800 77 8888. That's 1800 77 8888. The National Helpline offers a 24-hour per day service, providing confidential assistance to those in need. This helpline will also signpost you towards your nearest Rape Crisis Centre. Our main phone here in Dundalk, at our main centre, is another means of contacting us. We're here Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m, and you may reach us on 042 933 9491. That's 042 933 9491. You may also reach us via email on info@rcne.ie for further information or to request support. Rape Crisis Northeast offers a safe, nurturing space to survivors of sexual violence and abuse, where their rights to dignity and freedom are valued, and through awareness raising and education, challenging society to change in order to create a safer environment for all. The core values of RCNE are respect, confidentiality, non-judgmental, supportive, client-centred, safe, empathetic, professional, empowering, and trust. Also, Lisa, the key word that comes to mind associated with Rape Crisis Northeast is support. This comes in the form of our main line, our helpline, advocacy, information and counselling. The vision for RCNE is that we offer a timely and accessible support to survivors of all forms of sexual violence and sexual abuse. And I would just like to finish off by saying, Lisa, that to those listeners out there, please reach out to us, share what we've shared with you today. And remember, your story is important, your truth matters, and you're not alone.
Thank you so much, Belinda. That's actually such a wonderful way to bring the podcast to a close. Thank you so much for all of your really insightful and experienced messaging that we know that will reach many people. So Belinda, Mary, Annmarie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure spending this time with you today. And all that's left for me to do now is just to thank our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.